Ambassador Jiho Kim straightened his uniform as the transport ship approached the Galactic Council chamber. The massive structure floated in space like a crystal crown, catching the light from the nearby neutron star. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Jiho had been here many times before, but today felt different. Today, his people were in trouble. "Ambassador, we're receiving the docking clearance now," the pilot said from the front of the ship. Her voice was tight with worry. Jiho nodded, but said nothing. He looked at the data pad in his hands one more time. The message from the council had been clear. The human exploration vessel called the Steady Hand had been stopped, boarded, and detained. The crew was being held at the orbital station. The council wanted to see Earth's ambassador immediately for a disciplinary hearing. Disciplinary hearing, Jiho muttered under his breath. That was council language for a trial they had already decided. The pilot guided the ship into the docking bay. Jiho stood and checked his appearance in the reflective wall panel. He looked calm and professional. That was important. The council would be watching everything he did, every expression on his face, every word he spoke. The airlock opened with a hiss. 2 council guards stood waiting. They were from the Malthrak species, tall creatures with gray skin and too many joints in their arms. They looked at Jiho the way someone might look at an insect. "Ambassador Kim," one of them said. The translator device made the words sound flat and cold. "Follow us." Jiho bowed slightly. "Of course. Thank you for receiving me." The guards did not return the bow. They simply turned and walked away, expecting him to follow. Jiho did, keeping his face neutral, even though the disrespect stung. The council chamber was even more impressive on the inside. The ceiling stretched up so high that it disappeared into shadows. The floor was made of some kind of polished stone that reflected everything like a mirror. Around the circular room, seats rose in tiers, getting higher and higher. Each seat held a representative from one of the 47 species in the Galactic Council. At the very center of the room was a small platform, sunken into the floor. That was where Jiho would stand, alone, below everyone else. It was designed to make him feel small. "Ambassador Kim of Earth," a voice boomed through the chamber. Jiho looked up to see the High Arbiter Quan, an ancient being from a species that looked like living stone. "You have been summoned to answer for the crimes of your vessel, the Steady Hand." Jiho bowed deeply. "High Arbiter, I am honored to appear before the council. May I respectfully ask what charges have been brought against my people?" "Aggressive posturing," said another voice. This one belonged to Counselor Viarn, a Malthrax like the guards. Vron's voice dripped with contempt. "Unauthorized military movement in neutral space. Threatening council vessels." Jiho felt his stomach tighten, but he kept his voice calm. "I apologize for any confusion, Counselor. The Steady Hand is an exploration vessel, not a military ship. Perhaps there has been a misunderstanding?" "There is no misunderstanding," Viarn said. "Your primitive species continues to act without regard for council authority. This ends now." Jiho clasped his hands behind his back. It was an old trick he had learned long ago. If they could not see his hands, they could not see them shake with anger. "Counselor, with all due respect, might I request to see my crew? I would like to ensure they are being treated well." "Request denied," Arbiter Quen said simply. "I see." Jiho took a slow breath. "Then perhaps the council would kindly provide me with a written copy of the charges, so that I may prepare a proper response?" "Request denied," Quan repeated. "You will hear the evidence when we present it." "That is all you need." Jiho bowed again. "Of course, High Arbiter." As the council wishes, he could feel the eyes of all 47 species on him. Some looked bored. Some looked curious. But many, especially the Malthrax representatives, looked satisfied. They thought they had him cornered. They thought Earth was weak because its ambassador bowed and said please and with all due respect. Let them think that, Jiho told himself. For now, the hearing continued for another hour. Counselor Viren presented what he called preliminary evidence. It was nothing but vague accusations and sensor data that proved nothing. Jiho listened carefully, making mental notes. He did not interrupt. He did not argue. He simply stood in his sunken platform and listened, nodding occasionally. When it was finally over, Arbiter Quan dismissed him. You will return tomorrow at the same hour. The council will present full evidence at that time. You are confined to the diplomatic quarters. Do not attempt to contact your vessel or your crew.
Ow!
Bowed one more time. I understand, High Arbiter. Thank you for your time. As he walked out of the chamber, escorted by the same disrespectful guards, Jiho allowed himself a small, tight smile where no one could see it. They had made their first mistake. They had told him not to contact the crew. That meant the crew was still alive and together. That was good. They had made their second mistake too. They thought his politeness meant he was afraid. Jiho knew the truth. Politeness was not weakness. Politeness was a choice. It was what humans did when they believed there was still a chance for peace, still a chance for reasonable conversation. It was a gift that humanity offered to civilized species, but every gift could be taken back. In his diplomatic quarters that night, Ho sat at the desk and began to write. He documented everything he had seen and heard, every insult, every denied request, every sign of disrespect. He was building a case, not for the council, but for his own people back on Earth, because Jiho knew something the council did not understand yet. He was not here to beg. He was not here to surrender. He was here to give them one last chance to do the right thing, and if they did not take it, well, then the politeness would end, and the council would learn what humanity really looked like when the mask came off. The second day of the hearing began exactly like the first. Jiho stood in the sunken platform while the council members looked down at him from their high seats. This time, he had brought 2 members of his diplomatic team with him. Dr. Subin Choi, xenobiologist who had worked with dozens of alien species, sat quietly in the observer section. Beside her was Lieutenant Yuna Han, officially listed as a security officer, but everyone knew she had been military special forces before joining the diplomatic corps. Both women watched Jiho carefully. They could see the tension in his shoulders even though his face remained calm. Counselor Vieran stood to present the evidence. He moved to the center of the chamber where a holographic display appeared in the air. Here is the proof of human aggression, Vieran announced, his voice filled with theatrical drama. The hologram showed the steady hand, Captain Hannah Park's ship. It was moving through space, its sensors active. Then, according to Vron's display, the ship suddenly powered up its weapons and aimed them at a council patrol vessel. As you can see, Vieran said, the human vessel engaged in a clear act of hostility. This is unacceptable behavior in neutral space. Jiho studied the hologram carefully. He could see the problems with it immediately. The timestamps did not match. The energy signatures were wrong. This was fabricated data, and it was not even a good fabrication. Counselor Vieran, Jiho said politely. May I ask a question about this evidence? You may speak, Vieran said, sounding bored. The timestamp shows this incident occurring at 14:22 station time. However, our logs show the steady hand was in a completely different sector at that time. Perhaps there is an error in the data. Vieran waved a long-fingered hand dismissively. Your logs are irrelevant. We have sensor data from a council vessel. That is all the proof we need. Jiho nodded slowly. I understand, Counselor, though I must respectfully point out that the energy signature shown here does not match human weapon systems. Perhaps the Council's sensors need recalibration. Are you questioning the integrity of Council equipment? Arbiter Quan asked, his stone-like face somehow managing to look threatening. Not at all, High Arbiter, Jiho said with another small bow. I merely wish to ensure all information is accurate, for the sake of truth and justice. Up in the observer section, Subin leaned close to Yuna. He knows it is fake, she whispered. Why does he not call them out? Yuna's jaw was tight. Because he is being smart. He is making them show their hand first. The hearing continued for 3 more hours. Vieran presented more evidence, all of it equally flawed. Jiho dismantled each piece calmly and logically, always using phrases like, if I may respectfully suggest, and perhaps the council would consider. Each time, his objections were ignored by the end of day 2. Arbiter Quan made an announcement that made Jiho's blood run cold. The council has reviewed the evidence, Quan said. We find that humanity has been operating without proper respect for council authority. Therefore, we demand the following. Earth will surrender all military vessels to Council oversight. Earth's government will accept permanent Council observers who will have authority to approve or reject any human decisions regarding space travel. The chamber fell silent. Every species representative waited to see what the human ambassador would say. Jiho took a slow breath. The Council's concerns are noted, though perhaps based on a misunderstanding of human intent. Might we discuss terms that would be acceptable to both parties? Viren laughed. It was a harsh, ugly sound. Your species has existed for mere moments in galactic history. You are children playing with technology you barely understand. You will comply or face consequences. Jiho bowed his head. Of course, Counselor. Might we discuss what those terms would look like? Subane made a small noise of frustration up in the observer section. She could not believe what she was hearing. They were demanding humanity surrender its freedom. And Jiho was still being polite about it. The third day was worse. Jiho arrived at the chamber to find a new, holographic display waiting. This one showed the interior of a detention cell. Captain Hannah Park was there, along with 5 members of her crew. They were in stress positions, their arms held above their heads by magnetic restraints. Their uniforms were dirty and torn. One of the crew members, a young ensign named Daeho, had visible bruises on his face. As you can see, Viren said casually, your crew is being held under appropriate security conditions. Subin stood up without thinking. That is torture. She shouted. They have not even been given food or water. The guards moved toward her immediately, but Jiho raised a hand. Dr. Choi, please, he said quietly. Subin sat back down, shaking with rage. Yuna put a hand on her arm, but the lieutenant's face was equally furious. Jiho looked at the hologram for a long moment. He could see Hannah's face. She was trying to stay strong, but he could see the exhaustion in her eyes. The captain and her crew were suffering, and it was being done deliberately to break him. Honored Council, Jiho said, and his voice was very, very calm. I respectfully request humane treatment for the detained crew members. They have not been convicted of any crime. Surely the Council's justice system includes basic rights for prisoners. Viren actually laughed again. They are being treated as their primitive nature deserves, Ambassador. Perhaps if you were more cooperative, their conditions might improve. Jiho stood very still. Up in the observer section, both Subin and Yuna watched him carefully. They saw his hands clasped behind his back. They saw the way his jaw tightened slightly. They saw the tiny muscle twitching near his left eye. I see, Jiho said softly. Then perhaps we might move to discuss the Council's demands more specifically. I am authorized to negotiate on behalf of Earth's government. Arbiter Quan nodded. Finally, some sense. We will reconvene tomorrow with our final terms. You would do well to prepare your acceptance, Ambassador Kim. The Council's patience is not infinite. As Jiho left the chamber that day, Yuna and Subin followed him to the private diplomatic quarters. The moment the door sealed behind them, Subin exploded. They are torturing Hannah and her crew. They fabricated all the evidence. They are demanding we give up our freedom. And you just keep bowing and saying respectfully like nothing is wrong. Jiho sat down heavily in a chair. For the first time, the mask of calm slipped slightly. He looked tired. I know, Subin, then why? Yuna demanded. Why do you not fight back? Why do you let them treat you like this? Jiho looked up at both of them. His eyes were hard now, not the soft diplomatic expression he wore in the chamber. Because once I stop being polite, he said quietly, there is no going back. They need to understand what human restraint actually means. Yuna stared at him. Ambassador? They think our politeness is weakness, Jiho continued. They think when I bow, it means I am afraid. They do not understand what it actually means. What does it mean? Subin asked. Jiho smiled, and it was not a nice smile. It means I am giving them a chance to do the right thing. One last chance. He looked at both women. Tomorrow, they will present their final terms, and then we will see if they are smart enough to take the exit I am offering them. The 4th day started with a recess. The council was preparing its final judgment. Jiho had 3 hours in the private quarters before returning to the chamber. He used the time to think. Yuna paced back and forth across the small room like a caged animal. "I cannot stand this anymore," she said. "Every time you bow to those creatures, every time you say with respect, when they have shown us nothing but contempt, it makes me want to scream." Subin sat on the edge of a chair, her hands gripping her knees. "They showed us Hannah being tortured, Jiho. They showed us bruises on Daeho's face. And you just stood there and asked politely for better treatment." "I know what I did," Jiho said quietly. "Then why?" Yuna stopped pacing and faced him directly. "Why do you keep giving them what they want? Every time you bow, every respectfully submitted, they think we are weak. They think we are afraid, because they need to think that," Jiho said. He was sitting at the desk, his hands folded in front of him. For now, before either woman could respond, the communication terminal chimed. A holographic image appeared in the center of the room. It was Commander Minho Seo, calling from Earth Fleet Command. His uniform was crisp and his expression was serious. Ambassador Kim Minho said formally, "I have been authorized by the Security Council to inform you that Rules of Engagement Package Omega is now active. You have full discretionary authority." Giho nodded slowly. "Understood, Commander. I hope it will not be necessary." "All hope that, sir," Minho replied. "But if it becomes necessary, everything is in position. Admiral Tai Yang sends his regards. He says the fleet is ready and waiting for your signal." "Please thank the Admiral for me," Jiho said. "And tell him I still believe there is a chance for a peaceful resolution." Minho looked skeptical but nodded. "As you say, sir. Earth stands ready." "Good luck." The hologram disappeared. Yuna and Subin stared at Jiho. "Package Omega?" Subin asked. "What is that?" "Insurance," Jiho said simply. "Now we should return to the chamber. They will be ready for us soon." The council chamber felt different when they returned. There was an energy in the air, a sense of anticipation. Representatives from all 47 species filled the seats. Jiho noticed that some of them looked excited, while others looked uncomfortable. The Velchari representative, Counselor Thess, was watching him with an expression that might have been concern. Arbiter Quan called the session to order. "Ambassador Kim of Earth, the Council has reached its final judgment regarding your species violations." Jiho stood in his sunken platform, hands behind his back. "I am listening, High Arbiter." Buren stood to read the terms. He looked pleased with himself, like a predator about to catch easy prey. The Galactic Council has determined that humanity represents a danger to the established order through reckless behavior and refusal to accept proper authority. Therefore, the following terms are non-negotiable. He paused for dramatic effect. "First, Earth will pay reparations equal to 40% of your planetary gross domestic product. To be paid annually for 100 years, Ko's expression did not change. Second, Viaran continued, all human vessels capable of faster-than-light travel will be surrendered to Council control. You may retain sublight vessels for local system use only. Still, Jiho said nothing. Earth will accept permanent Council observers, who will have authority to review and approve all human governmental decisions related to space, technology, and foreign policy. These observers will have veto power. Viaran smiled, showing too many teeth. Finally, all currently detained human personnel will remain in custody until full compliance is verified. This includes the crew of the Steady Hand. Arbiter Quan leaned forward. These terms are final. You have 1 rotation to communicate with your government and return with their acceptance. We are being merciful in giving you this time. Jiho was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked up at the Arbiter. Might I make 1 final request before I contact my government? You may speak, Quan said, sounding bored. I request the immediate release and medical treatment for Captain Park and her crew, Jiho said. His voice was calm and professional. They are injured and have been held without charges for 4 days. Surely the Council's mercy extends to basic medical care. Viaran laughed. Denied. They will be released when humanity complies with all terms. Not before. I see, Jiho nodded. Then perhaps I might speak with Captain Park directly? To inform her of the situation? Arbiter Quan waved a stone-like hand dismissively. Denied. This hearing is concluded. You will return tomorrow at the same hour, with your government's acceptance. Guards, escort the ambassador to his quarters.
Yes.
As the guards approached, Jiho looked up at all the council members one more time. His face was still calm, still diplomatic, but Subin, watching from the observer section, saw something change in his eyes. It was like watching a door close and lock. That night, in the diplomatic quarters, Jiho sat alone for a long time. Subin and Yuna had gone to their own rooms, frustrated and angry. Jiho understood their feelings, but he needed this time to think. He pulled up his personal terminal and opened a secure communication. Channel to Earth. The encryption was military grade. Even the Council's best systems could not break it. Ambassador Kim to Earth Command, he said quietly. Authorization code Delta 77 Baker. Voice responded immediately. Earth Command. Receiving Ambassador. Secure channel confirmed. I need to speak with Admiral Tien, Jiho said. Priority 1. There was a brief pause, then a new hologram appeared. Admiral Tien Quan was a man in his 60s, with gray hair and sharp eyes that had seen more battles than most people could imagine. He had been defending Earth since before humanity had even joined the Galactic Council. Ambassador Tien said, I have been expecting your call. Package Omega. Yes, Jiho said simply. They have crossed the line. They tortured our people. They fabricated evidence. They are demanding we surrender our sovereignty. And they refused medical care for injured prisoners. Tiang's face hardened. Those bastards. Give me the word, and we will show them what human warships can do. Not yet, Jiho said. Tomorrow, I am going to give them one more chance. I am going to stop being polite and tell them exactly what they have done wrong. I am going to show them the evidence that proves they fabricated their case, and if they still demand compliance, Jiho smiled coldly. Then I will introduce them to you, Admiral, and they will learn that human politeness was never weakness. It was a choice, and we are choosing to revoke it. The fleet is ready, Ambassador. 47 ships in stealth position around the Council station. They have no idea we are here, Good Jiho said. Keep it that way until I give the signal. Tomorrow, the Council is going to see what humans really look like when the diplomatic mask comes off. It is going to be beautiful, Taeyang said with a predatory smile. Permission to speak freely, sir? Granted. It is about damn time. The 5th day arrived. The council chamber was packed. Word had spread across the galaxy that Earth's ambassador would be presenting his government's surrender today. Representatives from all 47 species were present, and many had brought additional observers. News feeds from a dozen different worlds were broadcasting live. This was going to be historic. Jiho Kim walked into the chamber. The guards escorted him as usual, but this time, something was different. Jiho did not bow when he passed council members. He did not lower his eyes. He walked with his head up, his spine straight, and his shoulders back. In the observer section, Subin noticed immediately. She grabbed Yuna's arm. Look at him, she whispered. Yuna was already watching. A slow smile spread across her face. Finally, she breathed. Jiho stepped onto the central platform. He did not clasp his hands behind his back. He simply stood there, feet shouldered width apart, and looked up at Arbiter Quan with an expression that was no longer diplomatic. It was flat and cold. Ambassador Kim, Arbiter Quan said, Present your government's acceptance of the council's terms. Jiho looked at him for a long moment. Then he spoke one word. No. Chamber went completely silent. It was like someone had sucked all the air out of the room. 47 species held their collective breath. What did you say? Viarn demanded, standing up from his seat. Jiho turned to face the Mouthrax counselor. His voice was clear and sharp as broken glass. I said no. Did I stutter? Should I speak more slowly so you can understand? The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. No one spoke to a council member like that. No one. How dare you? Viarn shouted. You primitive? Shut up, Jiho said. His voice was not loud, but it cut through the noise like a blade. I am talking now. You have had for days to speak. Now it is my turn. He pulled out a data tablet and tapped it. The main holographic display in the chamber changed. Instead of showing whatever the council had prepared, it showed new information. Let me be crystal clear, Jiho said. Since apparently 72 hours of polite diplomatic language was too complex for this council to comprehend, the vessel you detained was responding to a distress call. The hologram showed a recording. It was a transmission from a Velchari colony ship, screaming for help. The ship was breaking apart, systems failing, 3,000 people dying in the cold of space. This distress call was broadcast on all standard emergency frequencies, Geo continued. The Steady Hand was the closest vessel capable of responding. Captain Park and her crew saved every single person on that colony ship. The hologram changed again, showing the rescue operation. The Steady Hand extending docking tubes, crew members in suits pulling Velchari colonists to safety, medical teams working frantically to save injured civilians. Counselor Thessa the Velchari stood up slowly, her reptilian face showing shock. That was the Star of Morning, she said. Our colony ship that went missing 3 months ago. The council told us it was lost with all hands. The council lied to you? Jiho said flatly. He looked directly at Thess. Your people are alive. All 3,000 of them. They are currently at a human medical station, receiving treatment. We saved them while the council's patrol vessel sat on its collective ass, doing absolutely nothing. More shocked whispers spread through the chamber. Furthermore, Geo continued, tapping his tablet again, the evidence that Counselor Viaran presented about the Steady Hand being aggressive. Completely fabricated. And sloppily, I might add. The hologram showed the censored data side by side. On one side was Viran's version. On the other was the real data from multiple independent sources. The differences were obvious, even to non-experts. The timestamps do not match, Jiho said, pointing at the display. The energy signatures are wrong. The location data is impossible. We have known this was fake since day one. He looked at Viren. I have been waiting to see how far you would take this farce. Ron's gray skin had gone even paler. This is an outrage. You cannot, I said. Shut up, Jiho repeated. You tortured my people. You fabricated charges. You demanded we surrender our sovereignty. And you did it all because you thought our politeness was weakness. He tapped the tablet again. The display changed to show real-time tactical data. Every council member leaned forward to look, then sat back in shock. The display showed 47 ships. Human warships. They were in stealth positions all around the council station and had been there for 3 days. Their weapons were powered down but ready. Their shields were on standby. They had been invisible, but now Geo was showing them to everyone. Let me educate you, Geo said, on what human politeness actually is. It is not fear. It is not weakness. It is a choice. It is a courtesy we extend when we believe there is a chance for reasonable, civilized discourse. A hologram appeared beside him. It was Admiral Taeyong Kwan, live from the bridge of the human flagship. The Admiral's uniform was crisp, and his face was hard as iron. Admiral Jiho said calmly, Status report, Sir Taeyang said, his voice carrying through the chamber. All fleet elements are in position. We have weapons lock on every council military asset in the sector. Shields are ready. All ships report combat-ready status. Awaiting your orders. Panic exploded through the chamber. Council members started shouting, demanding explanations, calling for guards. Some of the smaller species representatives looked terrified. Others looked angry. Jiho raised his voice, and something in his tone made everyone fall silent. You wanted to see what humans look like when we are not being polite? Here we are. Arbiter Kwan gripped the arms of his seat. This is an act of war. No, Jiho said coldly. An act of war is what you committed when you tortured prisoners. This is a demonstration of restraint. We have 47 ships here. We could have brought 470. We did not. Do you know why? No one answered. Because we are still being restrained, Jiho said. Because even now, even after everything you have done, we are giving you a chance to make this right. That is what human politeness means. It means we control ourselves even when we could destroy you. Viarin found his voice again. The Council will not tolerate this threat. I call for an immediate military response. Go ahead, Jiho said. He looked bored now. Your nearest battle group is 6 hours away. We have been tracking them since they departed. They are not a threat. Admiral. Taiyang nodded. Confirmed. The Council's third battle group is being shadowed by another element of our fleet. They are not a factor. They will not reach this station. Counselor Thess stood up again. Unlike the others, she did not look angry or scared. She looked thoughtful. Ambassador Jiho, she said carefully, what are your terms? The chamber went quiet again. Everyone looked at the Velchari counselor, then at Jiho. Jiho nodded to her. Thank you, Counselor Thess. At least one member of this council has some intelligence. He tapped his tablet, and a new document appeared on the display. First he said, immediate release of all human personnel. Full medical care for those who were injured during your illegal detention, and a public apology from this council for fabricating evidence and torturing prisoners. Thess looked at the other council members. Several of them nodded reluctantly. Agreed, she said. Second, Jiho continued. The counselors who fabricated evidence and authorized torture will face trial, not just human judges. A mixed tribunal including council judges who were not involved in this farce. Real justice, not this theater you have been performing. Several council members objected loudly, but Thess raised her hand. The council's reputation is at stake here. If we do not hold ourselves to the same standards we demand of others, we have no moral authority. I vote yes. Other voices joined hers. It was not unanimous, but it was a majority. Third, Jiho said. New protocols. No council member species may be detained without evidence presented within 24 hours. No member species may be targeted for punishment without access to independent investigation. And no member species may be denied basic rights like medical care, food, water, or legal representation. Oh, and if we refuse these terms? Arbiter Quan asked. His voice had lost its confident tone. Jiho smiled. It was not a nice smile. Then we leave your council. And we take with us every species you have bullied. Every vassal you have threatened. Every smaller civilization you have ignored. We have been talking to them for months. They are ready to walk out with us. He gestured to the chamber. Look around, Arbiter. How many of these species are here because they want to be? And how many are here because they are afraid of you? We will offer them a different choice. The chamber was completely silent now. We did not come to the stars to conquer, Jiho said quietly. We came to explore, to learn, to help where we could, but we will not be anyone's subject. Not ever again. That is not how humans work. We have fought for our freedom before. We will do it again if we must. He looked around at all the council members. Vote now. Accept these terms, or watch your council fall apart. The vote took less than an hour. It was not even close. 39 species voted to accept Jiho's terms immediately. 5 voted against, all of them close allies of the Mouthraks. 3 abstained, unsure which way to lean. But the majority was clear. The council had no choice but to accept. Arbiter Quan looked like someone had struck him with a physical blow. His stone-like face could not show much expression, but his voice was hollow when he spoke. The council accepts the terms as presented by Earth's ambassador. Jiho nodded once. Good. Admiral Taiyang. Stand down to Condition 2. Maintain defensive posture, but power down offensive systems. Affirmative, Ambassador, Taiyang said from his hologram. The display showing the human fleet updated. The weapons locks disappeared, though the ships remained visible now. A reminder of what had been there all along. Captain Park and her crew will be released within the hour, Counselor Thess said. She had taken charge of the practical matters, seeing that neither Quan nor Viarin were in any condition to lead. Our medical teams are standing by. Thank you, Counselor, Jiho said. His voice was no longer cold, but it was not warm either. Professional, direct. The politeness was gone, but so was the anger. This was simply business now. Thess looked at him with something that might have been respect. Ambassador, I must apologize on behalf of the Velchari people. We were told the Star of Morning was lost. If we had known your people saved our colonists, this entire situation would never have happened." "I know," Jiho said. "That is why you are not on the list of counselors facing trial. You were lied to, same as everyone else." Bjarn finally found his voice. "This is not over," he said, though he sounded less confident than before. "You have made powerful enemies today, human." Jiho turned to look at him. The Malthrax counselor actually took a step back. "No," Jiho said quietly. "You made powerful enemies the moment you decided to torture my people. You just did not realize it until today. That was your mistake. You thought the smile meant we were harmless? You thought the bows meant we were weak? You never stopped to ask what kind of species chooses to be polite when they could instead be violent." He walked closer to the edge of his platform. Looking up at all the council members, "Let me tell you what you should have learned from history," Jiho said. "Humans are persistence hunters. We are the species that tracked prey for days until it collapsed from exhaustion. We are the species that turned wolves into pets and then conquered our entire planet. We are the species that split the atom and went to our moon using computers less powerful than your average datapad." He paused, letting that sink in. "And most importantly, we are the species that learned to control our own violence. We are not peaceful because we cannot fight. We are peaceful because we choose not to. That choice is what you should have feared from the beginning. Because the species that can control themselves, that can choose restraint when they have the power to destroy, that is the truly dangerous species." The chamber was silent. Even the news feeds had stopped their commentary, simply broadcasting Jiho's words across the galaxy. "You wanted to see what we look like without the mask?" Jiho continued. "Here's the truth. We are still choosing restraint. We have 47 warships here. We could have destroyed this station in minutes. We did not. We are still giving you a chance to do the right thing. That is what human politeness really means." He looked at Arbiter Quan. "Do not mistake it for weakness again." 3 hours later, Jiho stood in the medical bay of the council station. Captain Hannah Park sat on an examination table while a doctor checked her injuries. She had bruises on her arms and face, and she looked exhausted, but she was alive, and she was smiling. "Ambassador," she said when she saw him, "I heard you stop saying please." Jiho smiled back, and this time it was genuine. "It was time," Hannah laughed, then winced as the movement hurt her ribs. "The crew wants you to know something. We never doubted. When they were pushing us around, threatening us, trying to break us, we knew you were working on a plan. We knew you would not let them win." "Thank you, Captain," Jiho said. "I am sorry it took so long. Are you kidding?" Hannah shook her head. "You spent 3 days being the galaxy's perfect diplomat, collecting evidence, building your case, getting them to dig their own grave deeper and deeper. And then you pulled off the mask and showed them what real power looks like. That was beautiful." The young ensign, Deho, approached. His face was bruised, but he stood straight. "Sir, if I may ask, how long have those ships been out there?" "Since day one," Jiho said. "Admiral Taiyang positioned the fleet the moment we received word of your detention. They have been watching and waiting, just in case diplomacy failed." 72 hours of perfect politeness," Hannah said quietly, "and they learned nothing. 5 minutes of honesty changed everything." "That is usually how it goes," Jiho agreed. "People mistake courtesy for weakness. They do not understand that it costs us nothing to be polite, but it costs them everything when we stop." Later that evening, Jiho stood on the observation deck of the Earth's diplomatic vessel. Through the window, he could see the council station. The human fleet was still there, visible now, a reminder that humanity's patience had limits. Counselor Thess had requested a private meeting. She appeared via hologram in the center of the deck. "Ambassador Kim," she said, "I wanted to speak with you personally before you depart." "Of course, Counselor." "I had been reviewing the footage from the past 4 days," Thess said, "including the earlier sessions where you were so carefully polite. I understand now what I witnessed. You were not afraid. You were giving us a chance." "Yes," Jiho said simply. "How many chances?" Thess asked. Every polite word was a chance, Jiho replied. Every bow. Every respectfully submitted. Every time I let an insult pass without response. I was offering an exit from this path. A way to resolve things peacefully. Thess nodded slowly. And when we did not take those exits? Then I showed you what happens when the courtesy ends. I will be honest, Ambassador. I am frightened. Not of your ships or your weapons. I am frightened of what I learned today about human psychology. You smile while plotting 17 steps ahead. Your politeness is not a weakness, but a weapon. How can we trust species like that? Jiho considered the question. You can trust us because we still chose not to fire. We could have destroyed the council today. We did not. We proposed reforms instead. We sought justice through proper trials instead of revenge. Even when we stopped being polite, we remained civilized. That is what frightens me, Thess said. The control. The patience. Most species, when angry, they lash out. Humans get angry and get strategic. We have had a lot of practice controlling our anger, Jiho said. We spent thousands of years fighting each other. We learned the hard way that unchecked rage destroys everything. So we learned to channel it, to use it, to aim it precisely where it needs to go. Thess was quiet for a moment. I am writing a report for the Velcheri government. May I include your permission to quote you? Of course. I want to tell them this, Thess said. We mistook their smile for submission. We failed to understand that humans smile while calculating outcomes. Their politeness is not weakness. It is a gift. One they can revoke at will. We should be grateful they are still choosing to work with us because the alternative is terrifying. That is very accurate, Counselor. One more question, if I may. Go ahead. Will you stay in the council? After everything that happened here? Jiho looked out at the stars. Yes, we will stay. Not because we need the council, but because we believe in what it could be. A true gathering of equals. A place where disputes are resolved through discussion, not force. But that only works if everyone follows the same rules. That is what today was about. Making sure everyone understands the rules apply to everyone, including humans. Thess asked. Especially humans, Jiho replied. We hold ourselves to the highest standards. That is why we were so angry when you did not hold yourselves to any standards at all. Thess bowed her head in a gesture of respect. I understand. Thank you for this conversation, Ambassador. I hope our species can work together in the future. I am certain we will, Counselor. You were one of the reasonable ones. After the hologram faded, Jiho stood alone on the observation deck for a while longer. He thought about the past 4 days. About maintaining his composure while watching his people suffer. About the moment when he finally let the mask drop and spoke truth instead of diplomacy. It had been necessary. Sometimes people needed to see both sides of humanity. The polite, cooperative side that wanted to build bridges and find common ground. And the hard, unyielding side that would not be bullied or controlled. Both were equally human. Both were equally real. His communication device chimed. It was a message from Earth. The government was pleased with the outcome. The press was calling him a hero. There would be ceremonies and medals and speeches. Jiho deleted the message. He did not need medals. He had done what needed to be done. Nothing more. Captain Hannah Park's words came back to him. We never doubted. That was the real victory. Not the treaties or the reforms or the public apologies. The real victory was that his people had trusted him to do the right thing. Even when it looked like he was doing nothing at all, Jiho smiled to himself and turned away from the window. It was time to go home.